Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 are out on the Switch, and we have reviews for both of the games. Now, if you chose this one, you're listening to boring old me. If you chose the review for Resident Evil Revelations 2, you're getting Austin of Eggbusters fame, which I highly recommend. That one's way better, so check out his video review. But if you want to stick with me, you're going to hear about Resident Evil Revelations 1. Resident Evil Revelations started life on the 3DS all the way back in 2012, and here we are in 2017, practically the end of 2017, and Capcom is still porting it to platforms. This game has been on the 3DS, the PS3, the 360, the PS4, the Xbox One, the PC, and yes, even the Wii U. But we're not done yet. The Switch one has just come out, so if somehow the game has escaped you up to this point on all those platforms, or perhaps you enjoyed so much you want to double or triple or quadruple dip into the game once again, you can do that on the Switch. I always struggle with reviews like this because I'm like, the game has been out for so many years. Do I talk about the story in detail? And then I'm like, well, there's going to be people who haven't played it and are going to pick it up for the first time on Switch, so I guess it's safer to err on the side of caution. I'll just give a basic, plot summary. You play as Jill Valentine from a whole bunch of other Resident Evil games, and she's looking for Chris. Chris's signal, or the last known signal from Chris, came from a cruise ship out in the middle of I don't know where. Doesn't matter. So you go to the ship and you partner up with this other guy, and you're looking for Chris, and while you're doing that, you fight things that aren't zombies. I guess they're mutants, but they're, related to some virus in the series. The storyline in all the Resident Evil games has gotten so convoluted, it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't stop my enjoyment of it. It's a lot of cheesy, campy horror, and you fight these weird monsters. So if you're looking for, flat-out zombies, you're going to be disappointed, but if you like shooting weird creatures, then you should be very happy. Many people point to Resident Evil 4 as the high point for the entire franchise. It was a great mix of the puzzles and exploration of classic Resident Evils mixed with more action-oriented gameplay. It just felt really good. It was a lot of fun. Still had those cheesy elements to it, and everything just seemed to work really well together. And that's what Resident Evil Revelations does. In my opinion, Resident Evil Revelations is my second favorite entry in the whole franchise. Sometimes I think it's the first one. I don't know. It's between 4 and this one. I just really enjoy the game. I think it does a good job of bringing the game back to more of its roots and going with the style that Resident Evil 4 did, because Resident Evil 5, I believe, took things in too far of an action-oriented direction, and I just didn't really enjoy it. But Resident Evil Revelations, I was like, yes, this is what I feel like Resident Evil should be. The fun of 4 and the goofiness of all the other entries, so it really worked for me. So what makes up the gameplay of Resident Evil Revelations? Well, you shoot lots of things. You shoot weird creatures and weirder creatures and big weird creatures and small weird creatures. Sometimes there's a lot in the room, sometimes there's only a couple. It builds up the tense nature of the game because you don't know what's going to be around each corner to attack you. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes you run through an area and it's clear, and then on your way back you're like, oh my god, what happened in here? And things surprise you. And then there's also inventory management because weapons use bullets, and bullets are limited. So you have to hunt them out. They're, hidden in corners and different areas so you can find those. And you get different weapons and stuff like that too. But again, you have to make sure you don't waste your ammo because every shot counts. And then there's stuff like, oh, this door's locked. I need a key to get in here. Or all sorts of convoluted puzzles beyond keys, press this button to flip this switch to open this gate, and it's silly stuff. But I can't fault it because that's what Resident Evil is, or at least has been for many of its entries, and I've come to know and love that stuff, so I'm not angry at it here. It's just, if you put it in terms of the more realistic games of today, you're like, well, this just doesn't make any sense. But as long as you're not trying to do that, you should have fun with it. Everything combined together makes a really fun experience. Revelations also throws in another unique wrinkle with its scanner item, and this is something you're either going to love or you're going to hate. I really like it. I don't know why. I think maybe because I like collecting things in games so much. So basically you get a scanner and this guy's like, hey, scan stuff. These things are weird. We need to learn about them. So you scan things, and if you scan 100% of things in the area, you'll get I think it's like a health upgrade or something like that. But then you can also scan rooms to see things that you can't see with your naked eye. And again, it's kind of silly. So in Resident Evil games, you see green herbs and like, you know, plants on the floor, and you pick those up and those are health. So you can go through an area and not see any of those, but if you pull out this scanner, the scanner will make like a little noise and you'll see a reticle, and you scan that area and it's like, oh, you found something, and it shows up as like a little shiny speck, and then you walk over there and it's like, you found a green herb. So for some reason you can't see it with the naked eye, but you can see it after you reveal it with the scanner, and I don't understand why, but I don't have to understand why. It's just fun. And then you scan, and you'll get other stuff like ammo and stuff like that too. So it's kind of important. If you go through the game without scanning, you're going to be much shorter on bullets because you're going to use a lot of them fighting these things. So I tend to scan everywhere I go to try and find every little piece of ammo I can get, which you'll see a lot in this video review. It's just helpful in the gameplay. I want more chances to miss. I'm not the best shot, so, you know, if I can have a few extra bullets on me to take out a bad guy, I'll definitely take it. Resident Evil 4 was a big leap in the combat for the Resident Evil franchise, and Resident Evil Revelations has combat that's very similar. It's snappy, it's fun. I don't know how they tweaked it to where they did, but it's a gameplay loop that I never get tired of. Combat throughout the entire game is just fun and engaging. And the big difference here is, if you want to use motion controls to play, you can. And I actually really enjoyed the motion controls. It took me a little bit in the beginning to get used to them. So when you're aiming, your right Joy-Con, you just move it basically up, down, left, and right to manipulate the cursor on the screen. So it's not going to be like, you know, the one-to-one movement that you got from games that you played on the Wii with the Wii remote. But still, it feels good, and I much prefer using motion controls for fine-tuning my aiming than I do the joystick. Because, you know, with joysticks, I feel like you're moving like little degrees at like up and down or left and right. So I'm like, I gotta line up a headshot, up, 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 left, left, left. Like, you know, little minor movements as I'm going, and it's hard to get it where I want it to go sometimes. But with motion controls, I can just naturally move my hand a little bit to where I want the reticle to go. And that's what I was doing here. I really like it. I prefer playing this way. I definitely do. Like I said, you got to get used to it, because depending on how much you move around, the reticle might get a little bit out of whack. And especially if enemies are really up close to you, using motion controls might not work out so well. But you can use the combination of joystick and motion aiming if you want. So, you know, I would say motion controls for aiming are better for far to mid-range distances. And then when an enemy gets in really close, you might want to go with joystick. But the option's there. You don't have to use it, or you can use it, and I really enjoyed it. I prefer it like that. You can also lunge forward with the Joy-Con, like thrust it forward to use your melee attack with your knife, which it is what it is. It does the job. I'm not like, yeah, this feels great. Like with motion controls, I was like, oh yeah, this is really enjoyable. With doing a swinging or stabbing motion for the Joy-Con for the knife, I'm like, whatever, I can hit a button. I don't need to do that. But then there's reloading, and reloading obviously you can do with a button. But there's motion controls as well. So you take the right Joy-Con, which has the IR sensor on the bottom, and basically you tap that in your left hand as if you were like putting in a new cartridge in a gun. And I don't know if what I'm saying is true to real life, because I know nothing about guns. But, you know, you're reloading a pistol or whatever weapon. So you take your hand and you like tap it to the palm of your other hand, and your character reloads. And I really liked that. I know it's a silly little thing. I know some people might not want to do that, but I found it really enjoyable. I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm more in the game now. You know, it's not exactly a universe you want to be in real life, because it'd be scary as hell. But game-wise, I'm like, yeah, this puts me into the experience a little bit more. So, plus, I have to admit, as lame as it sounds, it made me feel badass when I was doing it. You know, like shooting an enemy in the head or a couple enemies in the head and taking them out, and then like slamming my hand into my other hand and be like, yeah, I'm hardcore. It sounds so lame as I'm saying it, but I'm being honest with you. I like it. There's also the addition of HD Rumble, and there's a couple options here. You can use like the HD Rumble to do the regular Rumble experience from previous ports of the game. So it's just vibrating where there were vibrations before. But then there's also like an enhanced option where it's, I think it's called Deluxe, like HD Rumble Deluxe, where they've tweaked things to make them feel different and added in some new rumbles. And this is kind of a mixed bag. There's certain things that feel really cool and fit in well with the action that's going on screen. And then there's other times where like Jill jumps down and lands, and when her feet hit, there's like a rumble. And I'm like, okay, that's a little bit too much. Like, we don't need a specific like landing rumble for this cutscene. But it didn't make me mad. It's just, it's there. So I just thought it was pretty cool that they had different options for you to choose. And of course, if you don't want rumble, you don't have to use it at all. Now, once you finish the campaign, or perhaps you need a break from it, you can move over to Raid Mode. And Raid Mode is, it basically cuts out all the BS, and it adds in a whole bunch of, like, modifiers and stuff. So, you earn BP in the campaign, and these BPs, whatever, there's something points, I don't know. You use these points to upgrade your weapons and purchase new weapons and other things for your character in Raid Mode. And you can level them up as well. And Raid Mode is like, here's a mission, and here's where you gotta go, like reach this room or hit this thing, and you just go. There's no story, and these are portions of levels that you've played, but now they have brand new enemies, enemies that you wouldn't expect to see there, and they have like health bars above them, and there'll also be certain levels themselves, so some are harder to take out than others. Plus, there will be like giant enemies, like giant versions of regular enemies, and also very tiny versions of regular enemies. So the tinier ones move much quicker, but are easier to defeat, and the huge ones are much slower, but hit really hard. So it's just fun. It's kind of like an arcade experience. It's just stupid fun. And one of the best parts is you can do this co-op, and that includes both local and online co-op. So if you're looking for like another reason to pick up the package, both 1 and 2, while Resident Evil Revelations 2 has co-op for the campaign. It was designed like that to begin with. Revelations doesn't have that, but this raid mode does offer co-op, and it's a blast, really. It's a lot of fun. Even if you've played through the story, like I said, this mode in and of itself is a lot of fun to do. It's just a much snappier experience, which might mesh or might go well with the single player, where you're going through story and you got to hit the plot points and stuff like that, and you're sneaking around. Raid mode is like, okay, go in, kill everything, get out, get some points, buy new stuff. So it's fun. It's cool to play the two together. Resident Evil Revelations, man, it blew me away on the 3DS when it first came out, because I was like, wow, this is a real Resident Evil experience on a Nintendo Portable. This is kind of crazy. And obviously some of that wow factor has been lost now because the game's been ported to a whole bunch of different platforms, consoles. So some of that is gone, but the game itself is still a blast. If somehow you have skipped this game across all of its versions, I would definitely recommend the Switch version. There's nothing here that makes it any worse than any other version, and there's some extra bells and whistles that you're only going to get on the Switch, so I had a blast with it. Like, I love the game. Like I said, I loved it in all of its iterations, so I definitely recommend this one too. If you are a Resident Evil fan, classic Resident Evil, or, Resident Evil 4, I guess I'll throw 5 in there as well, but I'm not talking about 6. I won't talk about 6. Then I think you would like Resident Evil Revelations as well. If you are not into cheesy stories and bad voice acting, then you should skip this one, because there's definitely plenty of that. But it's like, B-grade horror, like big budget action movie, but in game form, and that might sound bad, but I mean it as a compliment. It's like a popcorn game. Is that a thing? But yeah, I really like the game. I really had fun with the experience, and I guess the best compliment I can give it is I've played it multiple times now, and now that the Switch one is here, I'm playing through it again. So and I'm still having as much fun. If you haven't played it, play it. Hey guys, RMC here from Go Nintendo. If you like what you saw in the video, why don't you give us a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe? We'd love to have you. If you want to see what else we're up to, you can check out GoNintendo.com for 24-hour Nintendo news. You can visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/GoNintendo. You can check us out on Twitter at Twitter.com/GoNintendoTweet. And we're even over on Instagram at Instagram.com/GoNintendo. I put all the links in the description just to make it easier for you guys to follow. Thanks a lot.